Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Life's Playbook podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I made a mistake calling last episode Season 5 Episode 7. It's actually Season 5 Episode 6. So this is Season 5 Episode 6 of the Life's Playbook podcast. If you are new to the show, I'm your host, Quinn Jackson. My co-host is not with me today. He should be with me in future episodes, but it is just me today. And I'm the host, Quinn Jackson. So we're going to be talking more basketball. We're going to be talking more NBA offseason. I'm going to be giving you guys my top 3 NBA offseason winners and NBA offseason losers. And I guess it's kind of hard to make this list because the offseason is still very at large. So I guess as of right now, I'll call this my top 3 NBA winners and losers so far. I'm going to say so far. This isn't, cemented in stone, but I'm going to say so far. Because there's been a lot of news, and I thought it's only fitting to kind of start making this list. So this is so far. This isn't set in stone. It's just currently the way I'm seeing everything right now. Currently, these are the teams that I think had the best offseason and are having the best offseason, and the teams that are having the worst. As well as I'm going to talk about the Lakers finally getting a center and some of the controversy that's going on with that signing for whatever reason. We're going to talk about what this means for the Lakers moving forward in the West. So, having said all of these things, let's dive into today's episode. Before we get started with today's episode, make sure to download PrizePicks, the most elite sports fantasy app. And if you are a new audience and you have not subscribed to the channel yet, I encourage you to do so now more than ever as we approach the 1,000 subscribers mark. So, let's break through that milestone. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let's talk about the Lakers signing DeAndre Ayton. We knew this was kind of inevitable because Ayton was about to be waived, and they had to wait the following day later in order to pick him up. Ayton was last with the Trailblazers, as we already know, and this was kind of inevitable as the Lakers were in desperate need of a center. They played a whole season without one, and we saw how that went. They still were very good without a center, but now they actually have one. And to a lot of surprises, there for some reason are a lot of people out there criticizing this move, and I'm here to talk about it, and I don't know why. I think this is a good signing. It's not a groundbreaking signing because we knew this was going to happen, and we knew it needed to be done. But we're going to talk about why there's kind of some controversy with this. So, first things first. DeAndre Ayton, he's not exactly a bucket getter, and I guess in this system he doesn't have to. He's playing with three guys really, if you include Austin Reeves. He's playing with 3 guys that can give you 20 plus points a night. And Luka, he can give you 30, 40, sometimes 50 bombs a night. So the offense, he's not really brought in for the offensive piece. He is brought in, however, for the defensive piece and the rebounding piece. And I think he can be just that. As long as he shows up on a nightly basis, can rebound, play some defense, I think he's going to thrive. And plus, he's playing with Luka and LeBron. Those 2 guys are going to make him look like he was Anthony Davis in his prime. 2020 Anthony Davis. Or 2023 Joel Embiid. These guys are going to make him look good, is what I'm trying to say. So, personally for me, if I had to give this a letter grade, I would give this a solid B-. I think this is a B- move. It needed to be done. There was no way the Lakers could go another season without a definite center. This had to happen. It happened. And I'm proud that the Lakers did this. And a lot of Lakers fans should be proud that this happened. Now, here's where the controversy comes in. For some unknown reason, there are people out there that are not feeling this move and that For some reason, some people think this move made the Lakers worse, which is mind-boggling to me. But I'm going to talk about it because I think this controversy is kind of unnecessary because what were the Lakers supposed to do? Go another season without a center? I think not. So, if you're one of those people out there that for some unknown reason disagrees with this move, I'm here to tell you that you are being woefully ignorant. This is something that the Lakers needed to do. I think they are still they're not like championship contenders because they play in the West and the West is stacked. I think there are many teams in the West that are ahead of the Lakers as of right now. I'm not going to give you my, official rankings on the teams, but I will throw some teams out there just to name a few. I think the Thunder, I think the Thunder, I think the Rockets, I think the Wolves. I know that might want to be a little controversial, the picking the Timberwolves, but I think the Wolves, the Thunder, and the Rockets, just to name a few teams, are all still ahead of the Lakers. Now, where does this Ayton signing put the Lakers, in my opinion? Well, I still think they're a top five team in the West. They were a top five team in the West without a definite center. Now they have one. I think they're a top five team still. I don't know why anybody would think otherwise. If you think otherwise, I think you're just being woefully ignorant at this point. This needed to happen. The Lakers needed a fifth option. There's no way. There's no reason why we're having this discourse on Ayton being a Laker. There's no reason why we're having this discourse. And a lot of people are using the Dorian Finney-Smith move because, as we all know, Dorian Finney-Smith moved off the Lakers. I forgot exactly which team he's gone to, but he did move off. The Lakers let him walk, and they're using this to kind of downplay the DeAndre Ayton signing. They're saying that this was they're acting like this was a big blow, essentially, to the Lakers. They're acting like this was a big blow, losing Dorian Finney-Smith and only bringing in DeAndre Ayton. And I'm here to tell you that it's really not that big of a blow, losing Dorian Finney-Smith. It's really not that big of a blow, and I don't know why we're acting like it is. The dude, I think Ayton can bring in everything that Finney-Smith brought to the Lakers, and maybe a little bit more. But now that may be a little bit of a stretch because Ayton, I'm not going to lie and say that Ayton was the answer, and he elevates this team tremendously. He doesn't, but he was the answer for the fifth option, and I think he's a much better real than Finney Smith was. So let's first off stop acting. If you're one of those people that does not approve of this move, let's stop acting like losing Dorian Finney Smith was such a big blow to the Lakers, when in reality I don't think it's that big of a blow. And Lakers fans know this, and you should know this, which is why I'm saying this, which is why I'm telling you guys this. We cannot use the Dorian Finney-Smith move to downplay what could be a good signing. I think it's a good signing. I think this still keeps the Lakers in contention for the playoffs. Regardless if they signed Ayton or not, I still think the Lakers would have been contenders for the playoffs. Not championship, but for the playoffs, I think they would have always been in contention, regardless if they signed him or not, simply because Austin Reeves can give you good minutes. Luka is still present, and LeBron is, he may be 40, but he's still giving you good games. So, I promise you, the Dorian Finney-Smith move was not that big, and if it is, only time will tell. Only the season will tell if the Dorian Finney-Smith move was that big and that big of a blow to the Lakers. I think it's not. Only time will tell, though. And if I'm wrong, if I'm tripping out, hey, let me know in the comments down below what you think about DeAndre Ayton being a Laker. But I think this is a good move. Solid B-. I think the Lakers are still a top five team in the West. I don't think they've fallen off in the slightest. I don't think the quote unquote rebuilding process is weird at all for signing Ayton. I don't think any of that. And if for whatever reason you're thinking that the Lakers are going about this rebuild in a very odd direction, you might need to check yourself. I think the Lakers are doing everything that they are supposed to in order to keep the team afloat, in order to try to build around Braun and Luka. So, Ayton being a Laker, to me, is a solid move. Not a all-star move, just a solid move. And that's all it needed to be. Having said that, it's time to get into my top 3 winners and losers so far. Again, because I know that the offseason is still rampant, technically, so it's kind of hard to even come up with this list, but I'm going to try. And based on how I've seen some of these teams as off seasons, I'm going to try to put them into a list of 6 teams broken down into 3 and 3. 3 winners, 3 losers. So let's talk about it. We're going to start with the winners because this one to me is pretty clear cut. It's a pretty clear cut list. I'm going to start from 3 all the way to 1 for both the winners and the losers. And again, the winners for me is pretty clear cut. But at number 3, a team that I have been keeping an eye on, and a team that I think had a pretty good offseason, had a pretty good free agency. That team is none other than the OKC Thunder. Now, I understand that they didn't really make a whole lot of notable signings or trades or none of that, and they didn't have to. All they needed to do was just keep the core members on the team. They did that. SGA got himself a huge bag. Huge bag. Highest paid NBA player in history, I believe. $71 million a year for 4 years. Huge bag for SGA. So I got the OKC Thunder at 3. They're not going anywhere in the West. They're number 1 for a reason. They're champions for a reason. They're not going anywhere. Again, maybe they didn't make the biggest signings or trades or cuts or none of that. And maybe I might just be forgetting maybe if they did make some signings or trades. If you're an OKC fan, let me know in the comments down below any notable moves that you guys made in the offseason that I may be forgetting about. But they didn't have to do anything spectacular this offseason. All they had to do was keep the core guys on the team. They did that. I'm not mad at that. I have OKC at 3 as one of my winners of this NBA offseason. At number 2, this one is also a clear-cut answer for me. I got the Houston Rockets at 2. I have the Houston Rockets at 2, mainly because of KD and KD becoming a Rocket. This one's pretty clear-cut. I mean, they brought in a lot of other big names as well. They brought in Jabari Smith. They brought in Clint Capella. Obviously, KD. They got rid of Jalen Green, who was kind of an inconsistent bucket, and they brought in a consistent bucket. Now, granted, KD is on his last limbs at this point, you could argue, but I think he's still going to give them some solid, good years in Houston. He's going to give the Rockets some solid years while he's there, and I think the Rockets they're definitely one of the closer teams to OKC in my opinion, and if I'm tripping, y'all let me know in the comments if I'm tripping by saying that. But I think the Rockets, with the additions that they made, they're definitely one of the closer teams to OKC in the West. So, I have the Houston Rockets at 2, and for my number 1 team, who I think had the best offseason, there's actually a few options that I could have gone with, but for the sake of the episode, I'm going with another clear-cut answer, and that is the Dallas Mavericks. I think Dallas, I said it last episode, they're on the come-up. I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I think with the addition of D'Lo, getting rid of Spencer Dinwiddie, I think keeping Kyrie, and hopefully Kyrie comes back healthier and stronger more than ever. Same with AD, drafting Cooper Flag. This team is setting up what could be a good, I said it last episode, a good rebuild, if you will. And I'm all in. I'm all in on the Mavs hype. I'm all in. So, I will be watching this team very closely in the NBA regular season. Again, last episode, I didn't expect them to make a big splash just yet with the new squad that they're creating. I think it's going to take a couple years for that for that big splash to finally take off, but I do expect them, at least this upcoming season, to be a scrappy team in the West, maybe even a play-in team, maybe even a top 6 team in the West. That might be a tall order to ask, and if I'm tripping, you guys know what to do. But I got Dallas at 1. So for my top 3, so no Eastern Conference teams, oddly enough. No Eastern Conference teams, oddly enough, in my top 3 teams that I think so far have had the best NBA offseason you could imagine. There will be some Eastern Conference teams in my losers, though. But we gonna get to that in a minute. But that is who I have for my top 3 winners of this year's NBA offseason. I have OKC at 3, the Rockets at 2, and Dallas at 1. 3 pretty clear-cut answers there. Let me know your top 3 NBA winners for this year's off season down below in the comments section, and maybe any other teams that I'm sleeping on that also had good off seasons. That brings us to the losers. We got to talk about the losers, and there are some pretty clear-cut answers here for the losers. There's actually a lot of options I could go with right now for the losers, but there are some clear-cut answers here. And if you are a fan of any of the teams that I am about to name for the losers, let me know how you personally think your team's offseason was, and if I'm bugging on your team maybe being on this list. But we got to start at number 3. And at number 3, I have the Indiana Pacers. Now this team is only now hear me out before y'all start to crucify me in the comment section. The real reason why Indiana is a loser here is because they got rid of Miles Turner, and Tyrese Halliburton is going to miss an entire season. So it's not even really anything that they necessarily did. It's really just those two things that I think personally drastically changes the team. I think Tyrese obviously being out and missing a whole season drastically changes the team in and of itself. But now you lose Miles Turner. Yeah, this Indiana team is going to look very different. Maybe they can rebound nicely because of the style of play that Indiana has, and everybody steps up when the moment is needed. Maybe they can prove me wrong, but I really only have Indiana on here because of the current stuff that they're already dealing with on top of losing Miles Turner. And I'm going to talk about his new team in a minute because they are actually the team that I have at 2. And they're at 2 because it's kind of hard between 2 and 1. But I do have the Bucks at 2. I do have the Milwaukee Bucks at 2. The reason why they're at 2 is because the number 1 team kind of doesn't really have any sense of direction, in my opinion. But the Bucks at least have some direction. You know what I'm saying? Like, they got something, but they don't quite know how to execute it. And that's part of the reason why they're at 2 for me. And the obvious reason they're at 2 for me is because they waived Dame, and I get it. He was going to miss a majority of this upcoming season. He's kind of on his last limbs, you could argue, and but Dame is Dame. He had a big impact with the Bucks. On top of losing Dame, you lost Brook Lopez to the Clippers. You lost Pat Connaughton, and Giannis didn't know about this. Giannis didn't know about Dame being waived, so now he's probably going to raise some questions in the front office, and the future is still uncertain with Giannis. Because I've said this last episode, and I'm going to say it again. There's still plenty of offseason for Giannis to come out and say he wants to trade, especially now that you got rid of Dame. I get it. Miles Turner was a nice, cool little addition. He's a solid fifth option. But he's not Dame. He doesn't nearly bring as much aura, as much presence as Dame did. So I got the Bucks at 2. Because they kind of, got a direction, but they just kind of don't know how to execute it. Brings me to my number 1 team. And this team, to me, and there's kind of a lot of teams that are kind of in the same predicament. And you could say it's ironic because I just complimented this team on the signing that they just made in signing Jordan Poole. But I have the New Orleans Pelicans at number one, mainly because I just don't know what the direction this team is on. I don't know the direction that this team is on at all. I think Jordan Poole was a nice addition, but that doesn't take away from the other gaps that they still need to fill. It's still uncertain if Zion can be that dude that we hoped he would be. It's uncertain that he'll even give the Pelicans a full season. They drafted a bunch of guards somehow, and they traded for a guard, and it's all supposed to mesh, and I'm not buying any of that. I'm not buying any of that. So I got the Pelicans at 1 because I just don't think that they know what direction they're going in. I think they're just trying anything out at this point. And you could argue, the Wizards, the Kings. The Kings, I thought about putting the Kings on here as well because I wasn't a huge fan of some of the signings that they made as well. But you could argue the Kings, the Wizards, the Blazers, all these other teams could be on this list as well. And maybe I should have expanded it to my top 5 winners and losers. Because there's a lot of teams, there's a lot of options out there. But for me, I thought the Pelicans, because they kind of, in my opinion, just don't really have any sort of direction at all. They don't really have any sort of direction at all. I thought the Pelicans, Bucks, and the Pacers, mainly because of the current situation that the Pacers are in and that they're dealing with. Those are my top 3 current losers so far of this NBA offseason. And maybe I should have expanded this list to 5 teams. But to me, I thought keep it simple with 3. So as it stands, my top 3 winners, OKC at 3, the Rockets at 2, and Dallas at 1 are my biggest losers. Number 3, I have Indiana. Number 2, I have the Bucks. And number 1, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. Real quickly, before I close today's episode, I want to talk about the Mike Brown hire. New York Knicks. The New York Knicks finally, they hired a coach, and Mike Brown. Mike Brown was the former head coach of the Sacramento Kings. Coached that team all the way to the playoffs in 2022, I believe. If I'm getting that correct, the 2022 playoffs. Let me know in the comments if you're a Kings fan down below. What year Mike Brown coached your team to the playoffs. So he's a good signing. He's a good hire, I should say. He's a good hire, good coach. I think he's exactly what the Knicks needed. I think he's going to bring a lot of similarities that Thibodeau had, but better. And I think I like this signing. I think this really elevates the team. It's going to be interesting to see what they look like under Mike Brown. But this Knicks team, and with keeping the core roster that they got so far, not really having to lose a lot of pieces, I think this Knicks team could be scary. And again, they play in the East. And the East is up for grabs because there's not a lot of teams that are definite number ones besides, I would say, my Cleveland Cavaliers, the Knicks, maybe the Sixers if they got everybody healthy and everybody started rolling again, maybe the Sixers, but there's not a lot of teams that stand in the way of the Knicks' path to being number 1 in the East. And plus, the East is a pretty easy conference to win in. So having said all those things, if you're a fan of any of the 6 teams, let me know in the comments down below what you think about my top 3 losers and winners. If you're a fan of any of the 6 teams I just named, if you're a fan of the 3 losing teams that I named, let me know in the comments down below if I'm bugging putting your team on there, and if I'm forgetting any other notable trades or signings that your team has made, and maybe that might sway my opinion, because again, it was kind of hard to come up with this list because the NBA offseason is still rampant, free agency is still rampant, and there's a lot of free agents out there. So the 3 losing teams that I put on here still have time to really get the ball rolling. They still have time to elevate the team. But for right now, the way I see it, those teams just don't really impress me that much. They don't really move me like that. So, let me know in the comments down below what you think of my top 3 winners and top 3 losers of this year's NBA offseason. As well as, if you're a Knicks fan, let me know about the Mike Brown hire. And if you're a Lakers fan, let me know about the DeAndre Ayton hire and the sudden controversy with LA, because I actually think that this signing was good. It was a necessity for the Lakers, and I still think the Lakers are a contending team. Maybe not for the championship, but for the playoffs, I think they'll be a contending team. And I said it earlier in the episode. I think regardless if they signed Ayton or not, they still would have been contenders. But there was absolutely no way, and Rob Pelinka knew this. There was absolutely no way they could go another season without a center. So, if you're an LA fan, let me know in the comments down below what you think about all of this. Till next time, I will catch you guys for Season 5, Episode 8, the Life's Playbook podcast. Till then, peace out.